Welcome back to the Market Navigator channel. My name is Corey, and in this series, I'll teach you how to build a robust stock portfolio tracker that allows you to track all of your stocks and other securities across all of your different portfolios. In the last video, we discussed making your portfolio look nice. We discussed conditional formatting and the sizes of your fonts and the headers. In this video, we'll talk about creating multiple portfolios that might represent your retirement accounts, brokerage accounts, and any other accounts that you might have. Before we begin, if you like this series, click the subscribe button below and you'll be notified of all the new Market Navigator videos and stay up to date with the progress of the portfolio tracker and dashboard that we'll be building together. Let's get started. It's likely that many folks have different portfolios that might represent your retirement account, your brokerage accounts, your 401k, your HSA even. And you might want to track the performance of all of the different securities that you have in those portfolios, but you might not want to have that all in one place. So the best way that you can do that is create separate tabs or worksheets down here. We've been working in one so far, but what you can do is actually right-click and click duplicate. And you can do that twice, 3 times, however many times you want to do that, and you'll end up with multiples of the same portfolio. And that's not necessarily what we want, but we've already put a ton of work into this. Why not reuse that work? So once you have the number of worksheets that you'd like, you can go ahead and rename them to whatever portfolio you want to represent. So for example, if you want to have your investment account and a retirement account, we can do that. There you go, 2 separate portfolios. Now, obviously, the content or the securities that we hold in each of those portfolios is currently the same because we duplicated the one portfolio, but we can update that really quick. Let's go ahead and just put a couple different securities in here. And actually just got a question in the comments about international stock exchanges. In this particular question, they were asking about the London Stock Exchange. How would we go about finding out what a particular stock that's on the London Stock Exchange, what that ticker symbol is? Well, I just happen to know that it's LON for London Stock Exchange. And let's say that we want to put Rolls-Royce. The ticker symbol for that is RR. That'll populate there. I just happen to know that one. But let's say we didn't happen to know that. How can we determine what the ticker symbol is? Well, we can go to Google Finance and actually have some shortcuts I'd like to show you. And if we search for, let's do Rolls-Royce again. Rolls-Royce. What we'll see here, the ticker symbol and a shorthand version of the exchange that it sits on. And you'll actually even see up here in the search bar, it's populated LON:RR, which, if you remember, is the same for our ticker symbol here in our portfolio. And we'll go ahead and just add some other securities here to represent our retirement account. So that's essentially the fundamentals for building out multiple portfolios. But that might get messy once you start having 4 or 5 different portfolios. What you really want is a dashboard to track all of your different portfolios in one single pane of glass. And that's what we'll do next. To get started, we're going to want to create a new worksheet. And you can do that by clicking the little plus button here. And we're going to name this worksheet. And the way I did that is I just double clicked that worksheet, but you can also right click it and click rename. We're going to rename it dashboard. And so what do we want to see on our dashboard? Well, obviously we want to see the portfolio, the name of the portfolio. We also want to see let's say the cost basis for that portfolio, the amount of money that we have invested in the market for that portfolio. We might also want to see the current market value for that portfolio. We might also want to see the total amount in dollars gained or loss. Probably also want to see a total amount percentage gain and loss. And let's go ahead and format this nicely here so we can see everything. So that's what we'd like to see on our dashboard. We can go ahead and bold this. All right. So what are the names of the portfolios that we have here? We have investment and we have retirement. And we'll get to the formulas in just a second. But before we do that, we also want to have a total row, which will show us across all of our portfolios the performance of our holdings. Great, let's jump into this. For cell B2, which will be the cost basis for row 2 or in the investment portfolio, we want to sum up the total cost basis for the investment portfolio. So to do that, we'll use an equal sign to get us into function mode. We'll type in sum, which is a function for calculating the sum of a series of numbers. We'll put in open parentheses, and we'll go ahead and click on the investment portfolio, which will allow us to select the data that we want to sum up. So we'll go ahead and click investment. And let's go ahead and highlight all of the cost bases, essentially the entire D column. Let's go ahead and highlight all of that. And then we can, you'll see over here and also over here, we still have the formula from the previous worksheet. This is sort of a handy feature of Google Sheets. So we'll see that the formula is equal sum, referencing the investment worksheet, starting at cell D2 and going all the way to D14. We'll go ahead and close that out with the closing parentheses and hit enter. And what you see there is we now have the total cost basis for the investment portfolio. Now we can't just copy this formula down, unfortunately, because you'll notice if we do that, which I just did, we're still referencing the investment portfolio. And that's not what we want in B3. In B3, we're referencing row 3, the retirement portfolio. So that's not necessarily what we want. So let's go ahead and do a little trick here. If we edit the investment formula, the formula to sum up the cost basis for the investment portfolio, and we highlight investment and hit delete, we can actually do what's called an indirect formula, which will allow us to automatically populate the name of the portfolio in here. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's type in INDIRECT, which is indirect, open parentheses. We'll put in a quote, a single quote, and another quote, the ampersand or and sign, and then we'll put in A2, which will reference cell A2, which is the text investment. We'll put another ampersand or and sign, quote, single quote, and then the reference to the range that we want. And then we can put a close quote there. And then we need to make sure we close all of our parentheses. We hit enter there. We get the same result, except instead of hard coding investment, we're now automatically capturing that from cell A2 using the indirect formula. And the magic of that is if we copy this down, we will get a dynamically generated cost basis for the retirement portfolio. You'll notice there that we're actually getting the same number. And that's an embarrassing mistake here. The reason for that is we didn't actually update, when we added these new ticker symbols, we didn't update the quantities and the cost basis for each of these securities. Let's just go ahead and put in some random information here before we get too far ahead of ourselves. Say we bought Google for $100, which turns out to be a pretty good investment. We bought steel for whatever. So we updated that. And we should now see that there's a different cost basis for the retirement portfolio. We can even go one more step with this indirect function, and we can actually remove the reference to row numbers and just sum up the entire D column. If we remove those numbers there, we'll get the same result. Now we have a little bit more of an even more flexible formula that'll look at the entire D column for each portfolio. So it'll add up or sum up all of the numbers or integers in the D column. And we can just copy that down as well. The last thing we want to do for cost basis is a sum for the dashboard, so we know how much money we have invested across all of our portfolios. To do that, we'll do the same thing, sum function, and we'll just highlight those two guys, and we'll close that up. So that's how much money we have invested across all of our portfolios. All right, so the next set of data that we want to look at is the market value. And the way that we're going to do that is essentially the same thing as the cost basis. The cost basis was a sum of all of the holdings that we have for a particular portfolio. The market value is the same thing. We're summing up all of the different current market values across our different portfolios. And we can actually go ahead and copy over this formula. We're going to get an error. And the reason that we're getting an error is because we're now referencing cell B2 when we should be referencing cell A2. So we can just update that to A2, and that'll correct itself. If we want to prevent that in the future, there's actually a pretty nifty trick that we can do here. We can put a $sign before the A, and the next time that we copy that over, it'll actually remember that we want to reference only column A. Don't change A. Don't shift it over to column B. Keep it at A. It's a nifty little trick. And let's copy that over down below here as well. And then we can shift that right over there. Cool. We do need to also update which column that we're looking at. Currently, we're looking at column D, which, if you remember, column D represents the cost basis. What we really want to look at is the market value. So that's column F. So let's go ahead and update that. And sometimes we get these interesting errors with Google Finance. We definitely know that Apple exists and that ticker symbol is correct. Sometimes if you just refresh, you'll get it to work again. The one thing I am noticing here, though, is we're actually summing up the cost basis and not the total cost basis. The total cost basis would actually represent our entire holding. So we need to actually update this. So we need to shift over column D to column E and column F to column G to represent the total cost basis. Let's go ahead and do that as well. So column D to column E. And we can move that down. We'll see that the numbers actually get a little bit healthier there. And the same thing for column F. We'll make that column G. And there you go. There's our healthier market values. Now we can also move over the sum total for cost basis. We can do the same thing for market value. There you go. So we're summing up market value as well. So the next thing we're going to want to look at here is the total amount gained or lost represented as a dollar amount. And this is a really easy formula. We can take the current market value. So remember to push equal sign to enter into the formula option. We can take the current market value, which is represented in C2. We can subtract that from the cost basis. All right. So currently we've lost $541 in our investment portfolio. We can now copy that down for our retirement account, and then we can also create a sum total. So in total, between our investment and our retirement accounts, we have lost $1,600. So we're having a bad day in the market. Next up, it would be helpful if we could have a percentage, represent our gains and losses in a percentage. So to do that, we can do a formula here where we take the monetary representation and we divide it by the cost basis. And so this doesn't look super helpful right now, but the reason for that is it's trying to display a percentage in an integer format. To format this as a percentage, we can go up here and look for the percentage icon and click that. So now we'll see that we're down negative 21% in our investment portfolio. We can copy that down as well for the retirement account. Great. Now for the total here, for the percentage gain and loss, we can't just sum up these percentages because these percentages are relative to the market and the market value and the cost basis. So we're going to actually have to do this formula again, where we take the monetary representation of our gain and loss, and we divide it by our total cost basis. And again, we want to make sure that we format that as a percent. Before we move on from here, I do want to just do some quick cleanup. So I'm going to format the header row with maybe a lighter blue here. And I also want to bold the entire total row. So I'm going to go ahead and bold all of that. And I do also want to put some conditional formatting on pretty much both of column D and E. So I'm going to select those columns. I'm going to go to Format, Conditional Formatting, and we talked about all of this in the last video. So if you're a little bit lost on conditional formatting, go and take a look at the last video. Great, so now we have two rules. We have one rule for negative numbers, which will make the text red, and we have one rule for positive numbers that makes the text green. All right, in this video, you've learned how to track multiple portfolios, your investment account and your retirement account. You also happen to learn how to find foreign stock exchanges. And finally, you learned how to create a dashboard where you can track your portfolio in a pretty quick way, get a quick glance of the performance of your different portfolios. As always, I'll link a sample project file for you to reference in the video description below. If you like this video, go ahead and click that thumbs up icon below. And if you want to follow along in this series, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to ring the bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.